Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good morning Instagram fam, friends and followers of as-Saafiy, and welcome to another episode in our running series Revert Reflections and our final episode of this week's discussions under the theme What Sets Islam Apart from Other Faiths, and more specifically under the theme In Islam we are our brothers and sisters keepers. And so we've been talking about this subject all week, and among the things that we mentioned is how this concept of being our brothers and sisters keepers, it requires that we advise one another and foster this culture of mutual advising. And we mentioned also that this concept and this understanding is not readily accepted by many Muslims. And unfortunately, many Muslims, when this is mentioned to them or when they are given advice, they respond to it with certain rebuttals and certain refutations, and we address that as well. And today, what I'd like to do on the final day of our weekly series, I would like to make a few closing remarks on the subject, which I feel are very important to make. So what I wanted to say, brothers and sisters, at the outset is that we're all human, and therefore we are prone to make mistakes. We are prone to make errors. We're prone to do things in error. As the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, he said, Kullu ibni Adam khata. He said, every human being makes mistakes. Every human being sins. Every human being falls into error. It's just the reality. It's part of our nature to make mistakes, to err, and to sin. We also forget and need to be reminded from time to time. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَ تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. He says, so remind, because reminder benefits the believers. The believers need to be reminded because they're human, because they forget. It is from man's nature to forget. And so therefore, they need to be reminded. It is also our nature to lack the requisite knowledge and to transgress the bounds and the limits set by Allah and His Messenger. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indicated when He said, وَحَمَلَهَا الْإِنسَانِ إِنَّهُ كَانَ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا. He said, man chose to bear the burden of religious responsibility. He is indeed habitually exceeding of the limits and ignorant. Again, Allah talking about our nature as human beings. As humans, brothers and sisters, we have periods of negligence and heedlessness. And we also have periods where we have lapses of judgment and periods of desperation. We become desperate, and our desperation leads us to do desperate things, do the wrong things in those desperate situations. Consequently, brothers and sisters, we are not always in compliance with our religious teachings. And when we get off track, we need to help each other get back on track. Sometimes you can't get back on track by yourself. You can't go it alone. A lot of us, we live in a world where we're encouraged to be independent, to go it alone. Brothers and sisters, this is not something we can do alone. The Prophet ﷺ said in one of his hadith, he said, alaykum bil jama'ah. He said, I adjure you to stick with the community. Do not, O Muslim, go it alone. Don't try to do the Muslim thing by yourself. فَإِنَّ الذِّئْبَ يَأْكُلُ الْقَاسِيَةِ. He said, because the wolf, and the wolf here is a metaphor for the shaitan, the devil, he preys on the lone sheep. And many of us are getting preyed upon. We are being devoured by the shaitan because we've chosen to go it alone. We need each other because we have these lapses of judgment. We have these periods of negligence and heedlessness because we are constantly and habitually forgetful and habitually sinful. And because of this, we need each other. We need people to remind us. We need people to wake us up from our heedlessness and make us see, yeah, man, I wasn't even paying attention. I don't know how I got lost in the sauce. I really need to get back on my deen. I need to stop doing this thing, which I know is wrong, but somehow, some way I convince myself that it's not wrong, etc. and so on. We need each other to help each other to get back on track by advising one another. Now, if we understand this, then we also have to understand that those who need to advise should never feel that it is not their place to to give advice. They should never be made to feel. They see something, they want to say something, but they're made to feel that it's not their place to advise. And also those being advised shouldn't make the advisor, by getting upset, by getting defensive, by being verbally abusive, etc. They shouldn't make the advisor regret offering sincere advice. In order for this process to work, brothers and sisters, in order for us to fulfill what our religion tells us to fulfill of being our brothers and sisters keepers, in order for this process to work, we all have to be willing participants. We all have to buy in to this concept, to this understanding. We are our brothers' keepers, our sisters' keepers, and we have to, in order to fulfill this, we have to give this advice and foster this culture of mutual advising. And we also have to understand the ramifications, the consequences if we're not willing participants. If the process isn't allowed to work, brothers and sisters, the religion of the entire Muslim community, you, me, and our other brothers and sisters who are trying to do the Muslim thing, all of our religions are going to be adversely affected if we don't foster this culture of mutual advising, because there can be no religion without sincere advice, because, as we've stated, as the Prophet stated, there is no religion. Religion is being sincere and advising sincerely. You can't have the religion. We're not going to be successful as a religious community if everybody has to what? Keep their mouth shut, mind their own business, stick to their own knitting and butt out. If we take that approach, if we make people feel like they can't say anything, and if they say something, we attack them, then it's not going to work. This is what the Prophet is telling us when he said, ad-din an-nasiha. And so, brothers and sisters, another thing that sets our religion apart from other faiths is that we are our brothers and sisters keepers in faith. And what that means is we have to foster this culture of mutual advising. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those who embrace it. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Before closing, as always, I like to give certain reminders. And in this week, I need to give two. One of them is that this coming Tuesday, December 7th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we will have our second Reverts Roundtable on Clubhouse. It will be hosted by Muslimatic University on Clubhouse. And I'm asking all of you to join us. It's our opportunity to have this group therapy where people like us who were not born Muslim and lived a period of our life without Islam and became Muslims, we can talk about those issues which concern us as a community or as a sub-community in the Muslim community, the community of those people who reverted to Islam. It's a great opportunity for us to get together virtually to talk and discuss and talk about the issues that affect us directly. And so I invite you and encourage you to attend this week, this Tuesday, December 7th at 7:30 p.m. and to share this information with others and encourage them to join us as well. And last but not least from the reminders is, if you find this content beneficial, if you find that you're benefiting from this content, you're learning from this content, or there are things that you had forgotten that you're being reminded of through this content, then I'm sure that there are other people like you who this content has not reached who would also benefit had it reached them. And so help me help them. Help me make this content reach them by sharing this information, by sending it to people you know, sending the link to someone you know and say, hey, watch this, check this out. This brother does this every morning and I'm benefiting from it. Maybe you'll benefit from it too. Share it with people that you know. Share especially with reverts and people you know who have converted to Islam, but it's really it's content that's useful for all Muslims. So anyone you know who could possibly benefit, please share it with them and encourage them to follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, and encourage them to subscribe to our YouTube page. May Allah bless you all and bless your day. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.